you do this week, Evan? I'm going to ask you first because I have to think about what I did this week.
Okay, so this week, this is coming up on Happy Columbus Day. I shouldn't say Columbus Day, excuse me.
Wow.
There was an accident. I had a whole reason.
White privilege.
Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Fuck Columbus. For Columbus Day, if you want to read about what a fuckhead he was, you could check out the book 1491 by Charles Mann. I really enjoy it. And also in honor of the fuckhead, I started my Indigenous Peoples History of the United States, which I'm excited. I just started, so I don't have any information yet. Or you could go back and listen to our Two-Spirit episode, which talks about Native Americans and all the indigenous people of the Americas.
And I think even our Puritans episode, any episode where we cover American history, we basically talk about how horrible the founding fathers and every other, settling group came, how horrible they were, and how they literally just annihilated an entire country of people. Yeah,
the colonizers. No, but then the Two-Spirit episode, we also go a little bit into the history of indigenous people, so that's why I say that. But the one good thing was that we had two very good friends that got married, and so Samantha and I went to a wedding, and we spent the night in a mansion because my friends are fancy like that.
A little bougie.
Yeah, it is a little bougie, but you know what? It's beautiful. So it's good. And then, otherwise, same old.
I went to a production, like a little show. It was really good. It has my friend Michael Poopy in it. So it was fun to watch. That's his name.
Is it like his stage name?
No, that's his real name.
That must have been hell as a kid.
I know. But anyways, it was really good. Went on a little date, played a lot of video games, did some web design work, did some podcast stuff, drank a lot of coffee.
Nothing new there?
No, nothing.
You've really turned into a coffee fiend.
I don't know I think it's because I haven't been drinking or, smoking marijuana once a month. Yeah. So every day I'm like, gotta get that caffeine fix.
No, that's true. That's where my coffee took off. Like I stopped drinking and I was like, okay, well, I've got to put something in my mouth. So
something needs to either make me shake or and I don't want to go to cocaine, so can't afford that.
Got it. Much better to do coffee. I think it's a mixture of definitely when I stopped drinking, but also I hit 28, 29, and I was all of a sudden I was like, because I never really cared for coffee. I hated coffee. I was, like every young person, I only drank energy drinks. I was like, coffee's nasty. I'm never going to like it. And then something flipped in my brain and I was like, I love coffee. If I don't have coffee every day, I will die.
Oh, and I'm down 2.5% body fat.
I know.
So I need to lose another 7%, I think.
0.7%?
No, 7%.
7%. Oh, okay.
And then I'll be pretty slim and toned up. I don't know what the body fat percentage standards are, but
yeah, I'm also down 2%, hoping for 3% when I weigh myself this week, and I'm proud of us because we've done really good at the gym.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, it really helps having you to go with.
Yeah,
because if I go by myself, I'm like, well, I can kind of skimp out a little early, but if I go with you, we're like, no, we're doing this. This is our set for the day.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, let's do it.
It helps to have a workout buddy. It really does. So, yeah. We're so adult now.
I know. I'm like, I drank coffee and worked out this week. What did you do?
It's so different. The young people are bored. They're like, I'm done with this podcast.
Right? I used to go out almost every night and get really drunk and make it back home somehow. I wouldn't be driving drunk. I would have a DD or Uber or something. And I used to party out and stay up late and go to work on 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
If I do that now, I drink 2 drinks and I'm sick the next day.
If my friends want me to go out past 10 p.m., I'm like, ugh.
Okay, well, when we went to the production, it was at 8 o'clock. And then Naoki, who's Michael's boyfriend and friend, was like, come out for drinks and dinner after. And I was like, well, the show's from 8 to 9:30, so...
So coming up on my bedtime.
Yeah, I don't know when you thought we were going to be having time to do all that, but I got to get home within the next 30 minutes, so it's a 15-minute drive.
Not leaving me a lot of time to eat here. Yeah, no, it's same thing. It was so fun then, and it was fun then. But like it's crazy how like the very idea of staying out all night like makes my skin. I've done it once this last year. I did it. We tried to stay for Pride, and we made it to maybe midnight. I don't even know if we made it that long. And then we did stay out a good bit. We had the friends that just got married, their bachelorette party. There's two women, so they had their bachelorette party together. It was cute. We got a party bus, and we went up to Boston. And so we stayed out late for that, and I was fine. I also took like a 3-hour nap before it.
Yeah.
And I had coffee, and so I don't know how to prepare myself. If like I can't go out on a whim anymore. It's not like in your 20s where your friends would text you at midnight and be like, "Hey, come meet us at the bar." You just get up and go. Yeah, no.
I'd be like, I just ignore it and be like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see your message."
Exactly. Like, oops. Yeah.
I mean, I can do it. It's just, I don't know. I feel like when I was in my early 20s, I didn't really do that much besides work. So I like worked, and then if somebody wanted to do something, I was like, great. But now, as I'm in my mid 20s,
yeah. Your late 20s.
No, I'm in my mid 20s.
Okay, yeah, okay. You should be in his mid 20s till he's 30.
Yep, I am. I don't know. I'm so busy throughout the day, and I do so many different things, and I follow up on so many different tasks, and like at the end of the day, I'm just like, all right, I'm exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also when you start taking care of yourself and listening to your body.
Yeah.
There's another thing is when you're young, you don't listen to your body. I was thinking the other day about how like every day I'd get up and go to work and I'd feel like shit. And I would I just don't know why I feel like shit. But I was eating like shit. I didn't go to the gym. I drank all night. And I wake up and I would live off of like 3 to 4 hours of sleep.
I don't know why I feel so
sick.
And
I'm like, it's just weird. Every day I have a stomach ache. So I put a trigger warning in the episode, but I want to state further: if you are listening with small children, you should not. I know I shouldn't tell people what to do, but I'm honestly telling you, please don't listen to this episode with small children.
I watched Freddy Krueger when I was 5. I turned out fine.
He turned out gay. So if you want your kid to be gay, you let them listen to this. No, but I'm serious. By the last story, we're telling 3 stories, and by the last one, it's very gruesome, and we're gonna get a little graphic. Definitely the most gruesome and graphic we've ever got. So we'll see what happens. So you have been warned. It is gruesome. It is graphic. It is bloody. And I don't think that children should hear about it. But what the fuck do I know? People are always
you grew up in a cult. I don't think you have. There are some things that aren't appropriate for children. You don't get any say in what children get to see. Whatever. Every time I tell you something about kids should or shouldn't too, people are like, "Do you have kids?" As if I couldn't have any possible thought on children. Like if I don't have kids, I can't be like I don't have kids, but I don't let them play. I wouldn't let kids play in the street. I don't have to have fucking kids to know like, listen, oh wow, shouldn't play in the middle of the fucking road. I played in the street and I'm okay.
Oh god. Wow.
That's my favorite. Those things that are like, well, when I was a kid, my parents used to beat my ass and I turned out fine.
I don't have any trauma. The fact that I turned around and beat my kid's ass doesn't mean anything. Anyways, do you want to start? I feel like I started last episode. All right.
Every time you need to start taking care of that.
What am I supposed to do about it? I've been taking medicine. What else am I supposed to do?
I don't know. Not be sick.
Oh, okay.
Real simple.
Maybe if we had free health care. Go ahead.
Today we dive into the realm of the unknown, the mystery of supernatural, and specifically, the supernaturally fabulous. We're discussing queer hauntings because, yes, they exist. It's not all Victorian old women and men in their tattered outfits.
The Victorian era was such a fucking gay era, so...
It was. But every time you hear about a ghost, it's like, it was this... It's like this woman in this Victorian dress every time. Every time. Ghost ever. It's never some gay in a bar going, "Yes, bitch." Or like, I walked through the halls of the gay bar and then suddenly I heard, "It's Brittany, bitch." Never. It never happens. It's always, she was this woman in a white dress and she stared at me through the window.
Why are we so terrified of the Victorian era? That's what I want to know. Like, what is it about that like...
I mean, everybody died at 30, so it's not like the ghosts were fucking...
People were died at 30 before that, so I don't know. It's something about the dress of it that was so morbid.
The clothing.
Yeah. Anyways.
Oh, where am I at? I'm really distracted.
You just went
today,
off on your own.
If you can't tell. So, because almost all of our information is from one book, we want to credit the author up front, Ken Summers, author of the book Queer Hauntings, True Tales of Gay and Lesbian Ghosts. The book is available on Amazon with a Kindle edition for only $3, or you can get the Audible version for just under $8. If you don't have an Audible account, we've got you covered, because guess what? Your first month is on us. Just use the promo code QUEER. That's wrong.
That's wrong?
Yes. Go to audibletrial.com/queer and you get a free audiobook and a free month of Amazon.
Yeah.
Nope. A free month of Audible.
A free month of Audible comes with a free audiobook. What's wrong with my script?
It's not promo code queer. There's no promo code.
You said go to Audible Trial and what?
audibletrial.com/queer.
/queer.
That's not a promo code.
Oh, well, why don't you fix it, Mr. Smarty Pants, if you're so smart? Hang on. Nope, that's not what I want to do.
But it also supports us. It helps the podcast out. And you can listen to this book, which why would you not want to listen to a book about queer hauntings during Halloween month?
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Exactly.
I love how you wrote that little.
I'm right. Audible Trial.
As Evan's editing the script and it's moving around on my screen. It's great.
/queer. And there we go. Thank you.
So now we're going to take you on a journey of terror across America and around the world. We're going to cover 3 stories, 2 in the States and 1 abroad. And we must add a trigger warning, like Evan said. The stories only get bloodier and more horrific as we go. So keep your strap on, homos.
Look at you, just ad-libbing. I don't even know why I write a script anymore.
Just give me a few key bullet points, and I'll just make up the story. I don't care.
Yeah. So our first stop is a place known worldwide for both its queerness and its hauntings, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Which we should go.
One day we're definitely going to go. Yeah. I have a friend, Kelsey, shout out to you, who lives in New Orleans, and we can just, I'm volunteering us to crash at her place.
All right. Thanks,
we're
Kelsey.
Coming. We're crashing at your place.
But
you do know Kelsey. She was in my wedding.
I'm going to cut that out.
You've probably met her at least 6 times.
Wait, is she the one with glasses?
Yes.
Oh.
She's Jill's sister.
Yeah, okay, I know her.
You know Kelsey.
I always just assume I don't know people.
Exactly.
I'm like, I don't know that person. If I can...
Any person, like, I could be like, Samantha, my wife, and he'd be like, never heard of her. Who's that bitch?
David does the same thing. He'll be like, remember this person? I'm like, nope. I just automatically say no.
I'm good with faces, but I'm really bad with names. And so...
Maybe, I think that's what it is.
And I start getting, like, with my customers, I try to remember the regulars.
Oh my
but then I
God.
get this panic attack that I'm going to say the wrong name. So then when they come in, I'm like, hey, and I'm overexcited because I think I remember. And I'm like, hey.
When I worked retail, it was the same thing. Like the customer, hey, Paul. I'd be like, hey, how's it going? Like, you're in here every day.
Exactly.
You buy the same 4 items. Don't remember your name.
Couldn't remember your name. Because then I'm like, I have a name in the back of my mind. I'm like, but I don't think that, what if that's not their name? What if I call them Walt and it's not? And they're like, who's Walt?
Right.
And
start giving them name tags. Like when you come to my store, you have to wear your name tag.
Exactly. So anyways, all right. Any person who enters the city limits of New Orleans is bound to make an acquaintance with at least a few queers and ghosts. And what better way to do so than at the oldest gay bar in the country, some say even the world. Now, there was also debate about this. Some people said it was the second oldest gay bar, but it's an old fucking gay bar. And that is the Café Lafayette in Exile.
Gotta go there.
We can. Located in the notorious French Quarter at 901 Bourbon Street, the cafe lies in a structure built back in 1772, which is old in America speak. If you're from Europe, you're like, 1772.
Everything here is from -500.
Exactly. I have a strap-on older than that. As one of the oldest standing buildings in New Orleans, it is no wonder ghosts feel comfortable here. The original cafe was opened in 1926, just a few doors down from the former blacksmith of the infamous pirate Jean Lafitte.
It's Brittany, bitch. Lafitte was a scoundrel in every sense, though he temporarily redeemed himself during the War of 1812, when he saved the Louisiana city during the Battle of New Orleans, after bravely fighting to keep British troops from retaking control of the colonies.
Which isn't that such a... I'm sorry, I can't get over the War of 1812. I can't get over it. Because we won our independence, and then, like, fucking 60 years later, Britain's just like, We're gonna come back and take this again.
Well, yeah, because now they're like, okay, it's 60 years. We've developed enough to make it across the ocean without everybody just fucking dying on the way there.
We're losing half our troops.
Maybe we can get there and actually fight this time.
You have some nerve, Britain. You have some nerve. Go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, I can't blame them. They got fucked again, but you know what? Lafitte was granted immunity from his privateering ways by General Andrew Jackson. He was even granted a plot of land, though he would have to leave his beloved New Orleans. Instead, the pirate relocated to Galveston, Texas, where he built his own town, boasting around 1,000 people. However, a pirate is always a pirate, and eventually Lafitte again fell on bad terms with the American government. He built his town, and then he's just pillaging from everybody's house.
Literally, that's what it was. He kept pillaging. They're like, listen, you can't keep doing that.
You built this town for us, and I mean, it's your town, but you can't just come in our house just because it's your town.
Why'd you even invite us here if you're just gonna come here and rob us? It's like, that's easier than sailing around on the sea. I gotta find ships, but you're right next door to me.
In 1820, he was exiled from his own town, Galveston, or from the area, Galveston.
Yeah.
And as revenge, Lafitte boarded his favorite ship, the Pride, and burned his town to the ground.
It's like, they'll take that, you scoundrels. You're not gonna give me a shit for free? I'll tell you.
He spent the rest of his life on the high seas, dying just a few years later. Imagine that, you build a town. They're like, no, you are literally coming in our house every night and robbing our stuff. You have to leave. Fine. Burns a town of 1,000. How do you? That's a big town to burn down.
That's a good. Yeah, that's a real good sized town. That's several hundred houses.
Yeah, that's bigger than some towns in I always listen to podcasts and it's like, it was a murder in a small town. I had 516 residents. Yeah. This guy had 1,000. He burnt the whole thing down.
Burn it down. And also I had to insert in there that the name of his ship was the Pride.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's where we get it from. No.
Which is cool that he had a ship like the Pride, he had used that term.
Yeah.
In that time period.
Well, I mean, he's not thinking gay pride. He's just thinking pride. Pride's been around for a long time. Have you ever heard of Pride and Prejudice?
Definitely thinking gay pride. He's out there. His flag is...
It's so brave for him to be out in the 1700s.
His flag's a giant rainbow on his ship. He's just got his crew is all in just Speedos.
Oh, yeah.
Swabbing the poop deck.
Literally. The pirates are all just fucking each other.
It was all
day.
I mean, there was women too, I'm sure, but
yeah,
it's a vast majority of men out on the ocean for months. Mm-hmm. And you think they're just all gonna jerk off?
Oh no,
maybe if you just close your eyes and suck my dick, I'll suck yours.
Oh yeah, I don't even think. I think they were past that. I think they're like, hey man.
Well, I mean, that's probably how it started.
You would go to sea for 2 years. They're like, we're gonna be on the ocean for 2 years, so you and I are fuck buddies now. We're fuck buddies, and I might fuck someone else too, but you and I are definitely fuck buddies.
Right, and then I mean, when they docked, I'm sure they went to the bars and found the local woman and all of that. But I mean, from getting from place to place, it was 6 months.
Oh yeah,
you're not gonna go 6 months without doing something.
No, we all know that. I mean, even the Navy today, not on the ocean that long, are all fucking each other. Mm-hmm. So we know that the pirates.
That's why they sign up for the Navy.
Yeah, exactly. If you're gonna be a gay man, you're like, I'm gonna choose the Navy. They're like, gay man, welcome aboard.
Yep.
All right, but it was Jean's former blacksmith shop in downtown New Orleans, which was converted into a bar in 1936 and ran by a woman named Mary Collins. We know almost nothing about Mary except that she was a proud lesbian, and her open pride made the space a safe one for queer individuals. Literally, I looked for stuff about Mary Collins, and everything was just she was a lesbian, and that was it. She
probably got taken away during the Lavender Scare.
Oh, yeah, probably.
20 years later, they're like, you run a gay bar?
Yeah, exactly. So by the end of the 1930s, Café Lafitte was a thriving place of queer expression, though of course only on the inside. As time wore on, the notoriety of the gay bar grew until finally the landlord could no longer deny the cafe for its true identity. So in 1953, after 16 years in Jean Lafitte's blacksmith shop, the landlord refused to renew the bar's lease. Undeterred, new manager Tom Kaplinger simply walked down Bourbon Street a few blocks and found a new residence, which he named Café Lafitte in Exile as homage to Captain Lafitte's exile from Galveston, Texas, before he pled on the Pride. So, yeah, he's like, it's very fitting. So that's why if you hear Café Lafitte in Exile, that is different. And from what I understand, they reopened later a Café Lafitte back in the original spot. But so in New Orleans, there's 2 of them. But the Cafe Lafite in Exile is the gay bar. So wander into the right one.
If you go in, promo code queer. Promo code queer. Get that
Go
you know,
fuck
just
yourself.
kind of drink and support the podcast.
And go into the right one. Don't go into the regular Cafe Lafite in your booty shorts and your tank top and like, I'm here, I'm queer, let's dance. And they're like, we're just having muffins.
Yeah, right. So Cafe Lafite in Exile still stands to this day, and over the years has attracted queers from all walks of life, some who have never quite left. 2 in particular were notorious gay authors, Truman Capote, and Tennessee Williams. Oh, that's a kind of cool name.
You've never heard of Tennessee Williams?
I don't read, ever. The last book I read was The Hunger Games, and before The Hunger Games, it was Harry Potter, and before that, it was whatever else
Okay, well,
I had to read in school.
One day we're going to cover Tennessee Williams, and that wasn't his real name. He was from Tennessee, or he had a southern accent, and so his friends were like, Tennessee, and then that became his name.
Well, there you go. So, my pseudonym is Indiana Squats. Indiana Squats.
Can you imagine? Indiana Jones.
No, Indiana Squats.
Okay, but I'm just saying there is one cool person named Indiana.
That's true. So we're not going to get into their full stories, as apparently we're going to cover both of them at a later time.
Yeah.
However, perhaps the tragedies of their lives and deaths and what their souls is what
tied their souls.
However, perhaps the tragedies of their lives and deaths is what tied their souls to the bar. Both men frequented Cafe Lafite and Exile quite often, partly for the atmosphere and the gay community, and partly to quench their vice. Both men were alcoholics and would die from the disease. Their alcoholism, no doubt, was tied to the pressure of being a gay man in the mid-1900s, when you were literally being fired, persecuted, prosecuted, both. Yeah.
Everything.
You're a communist.
Well, a few years before his death, Williams wrote of an incident where he was beaten by a man whom he had previously had sex. Why are you laughing?
Because that's so horrible.
It's so horrible. What was really horrible is that Tennessee Williams was beaten on multiple occasions.
See, that's the thing where we've talked about in the past, where like when something's uncomfortable, we just laugh. And like, exactly. He was beaten by somebody he had sex with. I'm like, ha. I can't help it.
Not funny. But it is sad. It's so like, okay. We're going to have some older person listening to this and like, I was beaten. Right. But that is sad. And it really did happen. I'm reading a book, which we also will do an episode on, called Indecent Advances. And that's where I got this one little clip from. And it's basically an entire book of gay men who were beaten in America and how their offenders got off the crimes.
All I have to say is if you're so angry that you're going to beat somebody, it's probably because you have some repressed
like
desires.
I said, he was beaten by a man he had sex with.
So he's like, I liked it, but I'm mad that I liked it because I'm not supposed to like it.
Well, that's what. Williams wrote, "Why do they strike us? What is our offense? We offer them a truth which they cannot bear to confess, except in privacy and the dark. A truth which is inherently as bright as the morning sun. He struck me because he did what I did, and his friends discovered it. Yes, it hurt. Inside. I do not know if I will be able to sleep, but tomorrow I suppose the swollen face will be normal again, and I will pick up the usual thread of life."
Yep.
Yeah, his whole diaries are filled with stories like that, where like he had sex with a man, he hooked up with a man, and then someone walked in on them, or the guy would even just find him later and come back and beat the fuck out of him. But like, how dare you make me want to have sex with you?
Right? Somebody walks in on them, and as he's getting like fucked, and they're like.
And he's like, where did this guy come? Yeah. I thought this was a woman.
What do you mean? This is a man? Fuck, he tricked me.
The guy with the suspenders and the tie on? Oh, damn it. How did I mistake him?
So Tennessee Williams would be beaten several times for his homosexuality. The pain and rejection haunted him, and perhaps that is why he cannot let go of this life. On February 25th, 1983, Williams was drunk and sedated in a hotel room in New York City. As he went through his nightly routine, Williams laid back to administer himself eye drops, and the lid fell into his throat. Too drunk to stand up, Williams slowly suffocated. That is horrible.
Yeah?
Jesus.
I know, he just laid there, but he was too drunk, and he would take these sedatives to help him sleep, and so he they just assumed that he couldn't move
from a fucking lid to
in your
eye
throat,
drop.
And you just lay there and you slowly.
Yeah, because it didn't like it's so small that like you can still breathe a little bit, but like it's just not enough to sustain.
Yeah.
A year later, it was joined by his friend Truman.
Well, you missed the part. His body, he was buried. Yeah.
He was buried in St. Louis, but his spirit remains at Cafe Lafite in
You
exile.
always say Louise. It's St. Louis. Literally, St. Louis is a famous city.
A year later, it was joined. I'm going to make a shirt that says St. Louis. Buy it. It's called branding. A year later, it was joined by his friend Truman Capote, who had died from liver disease and alcohol-induced dementia. Capote spent the final year of his life suffering from severe hallucinations and in seclusion. His body was cremated and his soul joined Tennessee. It sounds like he might have even had some mental illness and maybe like some schizophrenia or something.
Yeah, he did. He struggled a lot with it, mental illness. But I think both men did. But it's also so hard in that time period because it's hard today living as a queer person. But in that time period where like every part of your life is threatened. And it's also this weird time where like, because at society we've gone through phases where like it was acceptable to be queer, but it could change on you in a minute. So you have a decade where
like right now where the Supreme Court's deciding whether or not you can be fired for being queer.
Yeah, exactly. So, but especially then, like you'd have like in the 1930s, you have this great decade of like people being openly queer, and then all of a sudden that shuts down. And then you have 20 years of incredible oppression, and in the 60s it starts to come back. So I mean, it's hard to know if there was just like what these men would have been like if they had been able to actually express themselves. But today, both ghosts are frequently seen at Cafe Lafite in exile. Williams reclaims his lone seat at the bar. He can be seen sipping a cocktail, leaning against a wooden post, and staring vacantly into space. Some have suggested he fears he is going insane, which was a constant theme in Williams' life after he witnessed his sister undergo a botched lobotomy.
Everything about his I'm gonna have a panic attack just for him. If I was him, I would just I can see why he drank so much. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's a horrible existence.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about his full life. When we talk about his life, it's a very sad life. He's a brilliant man, and it was a very sad life. And same thing with the Capote. Which by the way, Capote wrote like the first true crime novel in cold blood. So if you ever want to read or listen to that, because you love true crime. My wife came home. Anyways, Capote, on the other hand, can be seen mingling with patrons on the stairwell after striking up a conversation with an unsuspected individual before abruptly disappearing. Other famous souls are said to frequent the Cafe Lafite in exile, but these two men seem eternally tied to the gay bar. Along with them is a mischievous ghost known only by the name Mr. Bubbles.
It's Brittany, bitch.
He isn't so much a scene, but if you feel a sharp pinch on your rear, you can bet Mr. Bubbles is behind
Mr. Bubbles just squeezed your ass.
Exactly.
We now go west to Reno, Nevada, and the legend of Timber Kate and Bella Rawhide.
It's like, what's the most stereotypical lesbian names we could go?
Literally, like, if I was gonna write some like fiction or something, and I needed two lesbians, Timber Kate and Bella Rawhide, like
that would be it.
You literally can't get any more lesbian than that. I'm sorry. The two sex workers had turned their job into a gold mine in the early days of the Wild West. While the two women were deeply in love, it would have been dangerous to live openly as a couple. So they found a way around it by putting on a live show of their lovemaking.
Like, literally.
So smart.
I know,
because
right?
At that time, like, what man isn't going to be, oh, what? You can, two women?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like, if you're upstairs, like, having sex, like, you could be murdered. But if you're like, well, we'll just go have sex on the stage, and all the guys like, we'll pay you to have sex on the stage. And like, all right.
It was the first porn.
It literally was.
They performed public sex in saloons up and down the deserts and gold mine towns of Nevada, plastering the towns with posters wherever they went. They also did solo acts and continued their sex work, as it was one of the few independent jobs a woman could work in those days.
Yeah, I mean, in the West, like, there's so few things that you could do. These women were already in sex work, so they were still, having to be sex workers, but they were comfortable and they were happy. Like, they found a way that worked for them.
Bella, in particular, was quite beautiful with blonde hair, blue eyes, and gorgeous curves. She did an act at the end of the show known as Eve's Leaves, where she would come out in a small outfit of leaves and remove them one by one with each pinch of gold dust dropped into her bowl. Genius.
Right?
If she ran a company today, that company would have billions.
Exactly.
The man who dropped the final and largest amount of dust would win Bella for the evening. Again, like it just keeps getting smarter and smarter.
Exactly.
Kate, on the other hand, was large, rough, and muscular, but apparently a great lay in bed.
Everyone said she was fantastic. Probably because she could just pick you up and throw you wherever you wanted to be thrown.
Literally. So you know how you always see like a man holding a woman up, like standing
Exactly.
and like moving the woman up and down. She's standing and like pulling you in and out of her.
Exactly. I'm sure that's how it was, and the guys loved it. So though the situation may not have been ideal, the two women were happy and quite well off and settled down for a time in Reno, Nevada. That is, until a ruffian by the name of Tug Daniels showed up in town.
Every name in this story.
I know, right? Daniels was a swindler who saw a chance to horn in on the woman's thriving business, and as is the case with most swindlers, he was also a bit of a charmer. Accounts vary on whether both women were attracted to Daniels or just Bella. It seems unlikely that Kate would have been interested in Tug, though she may have seen him as a good friend. Either way, one day Timber Kate woke up to find that Bella had run off with Daniels. Heartbroken, Kate attempted to go on alone. She didn't have the seduction skills of Bella, and Kate tried her hand at weightlifting shows. So she would just get up on stage and lift weights in tights. But eventually it just dissolved into an odd striptease. No doubt the men made it clear that they didn't come to watch a woman stronger than them. So, I mean, this is me guessing, but like they just said that her weightlifting show didn't go good, and then by the end of it, she would just end up stripping. So I'm assuming the men were like, take off your clothes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Exactly. Kate slipped into a deep depression and might have faded away when she suddenly received notice that Bella needed help.
Surprisingly, a guy named Tug wasn't so trustworthy. God damn it, that was the most trustworthy name I ever heard.
Exactly. You mean Tug? He ran off? What?
After pimping Bella out and using her for all he could, Daniels took the money and skipped town, leaving Bella all alone in the budding city of Carson City, Nevada. Kate came to her lover's aid, reconciling with Bella, and the two settled down and took a job at a local saloon named the Beehive. That sounds like a cool saloon.
Yeah.
But Kate was constantly paranoid that Bella would leave her again, and her worst fears came to light when Tug Daniels showed back up.
This asshole.
The story goes that Kate was out for blood after Tug's betrayal, and Daniels was out for more money. The two squared off in the parlor of the Beehive and began to fight, but Tug never played fair, and when he realized he couldn't beat the strong and furious lesbian, he pulled out a knife. Quickly, Daniels sliced Kate from crotch to navel and fled as she bled out on the floor, gasping and writhing in pain. Devastated by Kate's death, Bella later drank cleaning fluid and died of poison. Fucking Tug. He knew he was going to get his ass beat.
Yeah, he did know he was. Going up against Timber Kate, you fucking moron. Oh.
She's using him for the weightlifting over her
Exactly
head.
Right. But Tug Daniels was never caught, and the ghosts of Kate and Bella still haunt Nevada in search of the fiend. People say that for years, if anyone tried to take down the posters of Kate and Bella's show, they'd be met with a sharp fist of Timber Kate. Can you imagine? It's like, I'm just going to rip this down, and bam!
He's just going to get knocked on the floor.
Out. Residents of Carson City say you can still see the murdered woman in a bloodied nightgown floating along the streets in search of Bella. Others claim to see her body ragged and bleeding, holding the contents of her stomach, and crawling through the streets seeking vengeance on Tug Daniels. And as for Bella Rawhide, her soul is forever trapped in the now dismantled building of the Beehive, frozen in the moment of time when she lost the woman she loved and had betrayed.
Yeah, imagine that. Like, the man that you left, this woman that you loved for, came in and killed the woman that you loved.
Yeah.
Oh my, that would be...
You deserve to be trapped, Bella. You deserve.
You kind of did it to yourself.
Which, apparently that story is completely legend. There's not a shred of evidence about it. But
no, I believe it. It's fact. So this is where, the last few were a little bit rough, but this is where the trigger warning comes in effect.
Yes.
This story is the one that's going to make you pass out. If you stop hearing from me, it's because I'm on the floor. So
I didn't put a lot of the gruesome stuff in the script, so you can read the script and be okay, but we'll talk about the gruesome stuff.
Now we hop across the ocean to Slovakia, a small country landlocked in the middle of Eastern Europe. But this tiny kingdom has a long history of nightmares, and most of these come from Erzsébet, or Elizabeth Bathory. So
Nope. Bathory.
we're just going to call her Lizzie.
Okay. Elizabeth Bathory.
Raised in the infamous region of Transylvania, she was a vampire. Elizabeth came from a home of horrors. In the words of author Ken Summers, I can't read today. Her uncle, see,
Jesus.
I think I'm having a seizure. Her uncle was an alchemist and a devil worshipper. Her aunt Clara was a witch as well as a lesbian. Her own brother Stephen was labeled a reprobate prone to lechery and drinking binges. Don't know what lechery is.
That's like you leech on someone and you're
so
a
like
leech.
a modern day fuckboy.
Well, not maybe yeah. You're using someone for their money.
Yeah,
and so, yeah. Okay.
He became Prince of Transylvania, while Elizabeth enjoyed her own savage youth.
So I didn't put a lot. I'll stop after this paragraph. All right. So Elizabeth was vain and narcissistic, and this combined with the abuse of her childhood left little hope of her being anything but a monster. At age 11, she was engaged to the Count Ferenc Nasty. However, Elizabeth was raped and became pregnant with another man's child and was locked away until the baby was born. Now, that's what I originally read, but when I went back, what I heard was, so the Count Nasty who was 16 when they were engaged. So this was, even though he was older, this was kind of common. Like when you're a princess, especially the Baltzeries were very prominent family. So Elizabeth, during their engagement, she hooks up with like a local boy and gets pregnant. And while she's being hidden away to avoid the scandal, the Count finds the local boy and, what did he do to him? There were so many murder stories in my head that I can't remember. But basically he tortured the boy to death and then lit him on fire. So the Count already is kind of fucking weird. Mm-hmm. As for Elizabeth, she lived her life, like she grew up in watching extreme abuse. So one story, which we don't know is true, but an infamous story was her, is that when she was a little girl, she watched a peasant who was being tortured, and he was sewn up into the belly of a horse, and then he suffocated to death in the belly of the horse. And they could say that the princess was falling over laughing because she thought it was so funny watching him being sewn up into the horse.
Oh my God.
So
people were fucked up. You already only lived, I guess if you only lived till 30,
yeah,
gotta have some kind of entertainment.
I guess so, yeah. So after Elizabeth had the newborn, it disappeared, and the young bride married her betrothed. The Count, who was 5 years her senior, was equally repulsive. And hopefully the illegitimate baby survived and was given to a good home. Either way,
that baby was... I'm not going to say anything because I was going to go real fucked up route. The baby's not alive.
Either way, even death would have been better than being raised by Elizabeth and Ferenc.
So, the Countess was given her own castle, and with her husband often away in other parts of the world, she took her own lovers as well. Elizabeth had no specific taste when it came to bedfellows. She was a beautiful woman, and she wanted beautiful people. Her long list of lovers included both men and women and anyone who identified in between. She once ran off with a wizard for a few months, but no one could ever tell if the wizard was a woman or a man. And if it was nothing more than sex, we would be discussing We wouldn't be?
We would be discussing.
Oh. And if it was nothing more than sex, we would be discussing...
Oh, maybe we wouldn't be. Sorry.
And if it was nothing more than sex, we wouldn't be discussing the Countess Bathory.
Bathory.
I'm going to call her Bathory. I'm never going to remember that. She retained her own last name even in 1575 because she claimed it was more legendary than her husband's. Good for her. However, Elizabeth had a very dark and sadistic streak, which eventually turned cruel and deadly.
So, a lot of people credit Ferenc as really introducing her to the torture. And so, they were both very sadistic fucks, and they just fed off of each other. So she truly loved her husband, but he's probably the only person that ever really got her. Him and one of her female lovers that we'll talk about. So the Countess loved women in many forms, but she especially loved to dominate and torture them. Initially, it was simply a form of discipline for her servants, which was common at the time. But soon Elizabeth found that she liked the torture too much. On one occasion, she forced a disobedient female slave to stand outside naked in the middle of winter and douse the woman in water until she froze. And that actually happened on multiple occasions, where she would drag the women out, she'd lay them in the snow, and then she'd cover them in water, and they would just freeze to death.
Holy shit.
During the summer, sometimes Elizabeth would cover her servants in honey, tie them to trees, and allow nature to have its way with the insects and animals stinging and biting the poor women. And soon the torture turned to a means to death. Historians believe this happened around 1585, though the most gruesome stories would not come to light until after Ferrant's death in 1604.
After the Countess had passed, Elizabeth brought her lover Anna Dervulia to live with her in
Caddis Castle?
Caddis Castle. Anna taught Elizabeth more about torture, and the Countess began to send a carriage drawn by 4 black steeds into town to kidnap girls and bring them back to the castle. There the women were chained to the walls, put in tiny cages along the corridors, beaten mercilessly, and put through every form of torture before, eventually, the dead bodies were disposed of outside. The amount of victims was quite substantial and therefore noticed and reported by citizens. But because the young women were peasants, no one paid their disappearance any mind. It is likely that Elizabeth would have continued her murderous spree without hindrance had Anna not died. At this time, the Countess took a new partner and lover, the widow Ezra Mazharova.
Mazharova?
Whatever.
Her name was Ezra. Yeah, so one of the stories, again, not in here. So so obviously people are noticing because she's just sitting in this carriage in the town, and some of the girls are being lured away because they're telling them, hey, we need people to work at the castle. And the rumors that Elizabeth was brutal, like she was a brutal master, had circulated, but people wanted the money.
Right.
But then like when that became hard because the girls weren't coming home, then they just started like grabbing girls off the streets. So obviously the peasants all know. So there was a local priest and Elizabeth says, you know what, we've got a cholera outbreak because the bodies are becoming too much. She's like, we have a cholera outbreak. Can you bury these bodies? And the priest is like, okay. So she sends him a casket. He buries it. Like 2 days later, she sends him a bigger casket. And the priest is like, can I just ask you how many people are in this casket? And she goes, he's like, it seems that there's 3 people in this casket. And she goes, well, there's 2, but because one died and then we knew another one was on the way, so we put him in there. So she lied. So they opened the casket, and what it was, there were spikes lining the casket, and apparently the 3 women had been put in, and then the coffin had just been closed on them, and then they had been impaled and left to die in the casket, and then been shipped out to the priest to be buried.
Imagine that laying there, and like just seeing that, and
just
waiting for it to slam down on you.
Exactly. So
your ears would be ringing. Like I'm just imagining that my ears would be ringing. Everything would start to go blurry, like waiting for it to come down.
Yeah.
Panic.
So anyway, so the priest was like on it. So he starts speaking openly about her. Like, this woman is killing people and we have to do something about it. But like no one seems to give a fuck. And then Anna dies and Ezra comes around. So the widow, Ezra, convinced Elizabeth that she could get even more beautiful girls if she could lure away wealthy women. So the two conspired and created a fake school of social ethics for high-ranking ladies in the region. And this is where she fucked up. Mm-hmm. Somehow, the Countess had managed to maintain a respected image among the nobles, and they were happy to send their daughters off to Caddis Castle. Sadly, the naive young women met the same fate as the peasant girls, being beaten, cut, burned, and in some cases even eaten by the monstrous Countess and her followers. For by now, the Countess had acquired a group of individuals who aided her in her quest of torture and death. She had a whole group of people, and almost all of them were women, who helped her, like, capture these girls, bring them to her, torture them. And so one story, and this one was really rough, because is a little kid. This 12-year-old girl runs away from the castle, and 2 of the Elizabeth ladies in waiting go and they find the little girl and they bring her back, and the Countess is so mad that she starts stabbing the little girl in her fingers, and then when she's like stabbed them, she goes up to her arms and then she goes down to her legs, but she doesn't like stab any vital organs, so she just literally stabs the little girl to death.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Listen, if anybody out there ever murders me, please just do it in one go.
just one foul swoop.
I don't want this. One go.
So one individual. All right. So She had quite a group of people. Some were there by choice, others on fear of death. So some people came to the court, and for some reason the Countess liked them, and they didn't want to leave, but they were terrified of this woman.
Right.
Everyone was terrified, and I would be terrified because her torture was so sadistic and so horrific.
Right.
It's not just that you're going to die; you're going to be tortured to death in the most horrific way. So one individual was a nurse who kept the captive women alive and able to endure more torture. So and the nurse like taught the Countess where to cut and what to do to keep the victims alive.
Jesus. The murderous reign came crashing down in 1610 when a local priest began to out her to the lords and nobles in the community. Finally catching the ear of King Matthias, whatever. who was actually quite pleased to have a reason to investigate the Countess. King Matthias owed Elizabeth a substantial sum of money, which he could not pay. The castle was raided, and imperial guards found more than they bargained for when they entered the bloody fortress.
Like, no shit.
Yeah, there were corpses of rotting bodies everywhere. In some areas of the castle, an entire hallway would be covered in blood. Victims still alive were screaming in pain. One officer wrote, "We watched in horror as the dogs ran about with parts of the girls in their mouth." Oh my lord!
I know.
Imagine it's like, you want a bone? You want a bone? Throwing an arm, like
exactly.
a whole arm.
Fetch boy. Mm-hmm. No. So one of the biggest rumors about Countess Bathory is that she bathed in the blood of her victims, which is one of the few stories that probably isn't true. But it is true that she would have her servants go around and get up scoops of blood, and they would put it in vials, and she would put it on herself. So she was obsessed with remaining young and beautiful. So there was enough blood that you could scoop it up in your hands and put it in a bucket, you know.
Jesus, just like rivers of blood flowing through the hallway.
Yeah. And the thing about this, I had heard about this woman a long time ago, but it seems too fantastic, like too ridiculous. There's no way this could be true. This is just a legend that's evolved. But over 300 people testified at the trial for the Blood Countess, as she was now known. The physical and testimonial evidence was overwhelming, and it was estimated that Elizabeth murdered or oversaw the murder of at least 600 women. Now, the number 600 came from a girl, a chambermaid who had gone into Elizabeth's room to clean it, and she found a book where Elizabeth had written down the names and like a brief description of each one of her victims.
Oh my God.
And there were 615 names. The official total is 80 because that's how many bodies they found.
Yeah.
But this went on for 40 years. So
there's no way it was only 80.
Exactly. And
not 2 a year. Like, she's sending away carriages to gather these women.
Exactly. And also, like I said, when 300 people want to testify against you, you're a fucking cunt.
Mm-hmm. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Just the line of people waiting.
Like, does anybody want to testify against the Countess? Everybody gets in line. Mm-hmm. One person doesn't. Joe's like, I just don't know if it's true, okay? It sounds ridiculous.
Right.
So, yet, even though all her co-conspirators were executed, Elizabeth's title saved her. Instead, she was walled up in her room with just enough space for the guards to pass her food and water each day. And she, as an act of protest, she put on her wedding dress, and she was there for 4 years, and she spent the next 4 years only in her wedding dress. Like, she died in her wedding dress. Before we get there, I'm going to read this about the trial. So, so her torture methods included beating her maidservants with barbed lash and heavy cuddle. I don't know. I think it's a heavy club. Mm-hmm. Dragging them naked in the snow and dousing them with cold water until they froze to death, putting pins under their fingernails, armpits, and genitals. Oh, yeah, there was one where she took a hot, fire iron, and she shoved it up a girl's vagina. Just shoved it up there. Yeah. And then it says she bathed in the young girl's blood and made different surgeries on the victims, starved them to death, bit their flesh, and sexually abused them, which was the least, you know. Mm-hmm. Her accomplices were forced to testify against her, and so one of them testified at the trial, saying, "They tied the hands and arms very tightly with a Venice cord. They were beaten until the whole body was black as charcoal, and their skin was rent and torn. One girl suffered more than 200 blows before dying. Dorco, who was another accomplice, cut their fingers one by one with shears and then slit the veins with scissors."
I'm gonna pass it up.
I told him, I said, Paul, you need to check the fucking, I said, this is the Marquis de Sade if, like, he did everything that he wrote about.
Right.
Like, the Marquis de Sade just mostly wrote about everything he wanted to do. And fucking Erzsébet did it.
Needless to say, the castle's haunted.
Yeah. So, anyways, so all that to say, after 4 years of being walled up inside the room, Erzsébet died. Needless to say, the castle is haunted. It has since been reduced to shambles and ruins, but to this day, at least part of the structure remains, sitting empty of mortal life, but possessed by the demons the Blood Countess created. Those in the town nearby can hear the screams of the countless victims. Faces and forms are seen in the windows. A heavy mist of death still lingers in the air. They say Elizabeth still roams the dungeon below with the souls of her victims still entrapped, and she's still wearing the white wedding dress that she died in.
Now, I don't really believe in ghosts or anything, but if somewhere is actually going to be haunted, it's that place.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Same. No,
Let's
you could
go.
not.
Let's do it.
Jeff Bezos could promise me his fucking fortune, and I would tell him, "Go fuck yourself, Jeff."
You want to go visit it?
No, I don't
stay the night.
I don't think anybody goes. I don't even think ghost hunters go. I think like legitimate people are like, no, I don't. We know that place is haunted. We don't need to check. We don't need to verify. Like,
if you want to go with me, let me know.
you're a psycho. You could not pay me enough to step in that castle. No way in hell.
I bet the earth underneath that castle is so fertile though, from like all the blood seeping through like the minerals and stuff. Like I bet you could grow some
it's beautiful. You could get some great tomatoes. Mm-hmm. You just have to make sure that you don't get murdered by the psychotic countess ghost before the tomatoes grow.
So that's our story for today. And your recommended resource is Queer Hauntings, True Tales of Gay and Lesbian Ghosts by Ken Summers. Sumner is my grandfather's family name. And if you want to check out the story of Elizabeth Bowtry further, we recommend the book Infamous Lady, The True Story of Erzsébet Bowtry. As for movies, there are not many modern-day English versions available.
Yeah.
Though if you like foreign films, you can check out The Countess, or there's a lot of other podcasts devoted to her story.
Yeah, there's a lot of true crime podcasts that have covered her, and you can learn a lot more about her. But yeah, I couldn't bring myself to do a whole episode on her because she was queer, but she was also, and she was like legitimately, she was very sick. Like they would say that at times of stress, her torture would when her husband died. She had like 4 girls riding the carriage with her, and she just tortured them the whole way. Like as her stress would rise, so would her torture methods, because she didn't know how to cope with feelings. So, good stuff. But yeah.
So, do something fun today.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty
dark. Take your mind off of that. Go enjoy yourself. Listen to something else funny. Listen to some of our old podcasts.
Are David and Jonathan gay?
Yeah, that's a good one.
We're David and Jonathan, whatever.
Yeah.
We have a few funny ones out there, so if you need a little pick me up.
Yep. Yeah. And we'll be back next week with a little bit more gruesome. We're gonna make it through October, people. Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas. So the 2 gay serial killers. So yeah.
Stay queer.
Don't get a lobotomy.
Especially not a botched one.
It'll fuck you up.
We love you, our little allied hookers.
And a little succulent sapphis.
And our proud homocrats.
Have a sodomy circus.
Goodbye.
Bye.